Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 9th episode of From Print to Podcast, presented by the Ramaker magazine. I'm your friendly neighborhood editor, Liz Long, and in today's episode, we're sharing a deeper look into our gorgeous September-October Homes cover feature, thanks to homeowner Marcella Griggs, who also owns the incredible award-winning Currie House in Blacksburg. Next, we learn more about the local real estate market and workshops for first-time home sellers, thanks to Stacey Porter of eXp Realty. And finally, we chat with FNS Building Innovation's Alicia Smith and Michelle Ramaker as they share more about the Build Smart Institute, a local program for students of all ages to learn about the trade industry. Sit back, relax, and get all cozy at home as we share more renovation inspiration, educational opportunities, and so much more. For our first segment of our Incredible Homes episode, we're excited to share more about our gorgeous September-October cover, thanks to homeowner Marcella Griggs. Not only did she put in some incredible work into her guest house renovation, but she's also the homeowner of the historic Currie House, designed by architect and head of architecture at Virginia Tech, Leonard J. Currie. Hi, Marcella. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I first personally owe you enormous thanks for letting us into your home and sharing the space with us, and thank you so much from our readers as well. Bob Souter took these amazing photos that are only a small peek into the details, while Stephanie Fallon shared an overview of the work that went into your guest house, and I know readers are going to love learning more and being inspired for their own home renovation projects. So if you don't mind, would you like to tell us a little bit about your background and how you fell in love with the house that you're in today?
Surely. Well, the Currie House that we live in is next door to the house we've just renovated. Mm-hmm. And the house was built by Leonard Currie for his own family in 1962.
I didn't realize he lived there with his family.
He
How
did.
Cool.
He built it for himself. And he moved on then from being head of the Virginia Tech architecture department to being the dean at the University of Illinois, Chicago Circle Architecture School. And he stayed up there until he retired. Then he came back to Blacksburg and built a separate house for himself eventually. But my partner, 45 years, Peter Trower, and I own the house together. He bought it from Leonard in 1966, and so has lived there ever since. I came upon the scene from California in 1978, 45 years ago, so we have loved living there. As a matter of fact, Peter says you probably came to Virginia Tech and to Blacksburg just because of the Currie House.
How wonderful that you get to live in it then.
Oh, it's a wonderful house.
It sounds like it was love at first sight.
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful. And, we briefly mentioned the fact that it's an award-winning house,
yes,
quite literally. So it has an American Institute of Architects Homes for Better Living Award in 1963 and a Virginia Society of the American Institute of Architects Test of Time Award in 1982. Oh my gosh, sounds very important. And most importantly, very exciting kind of for Virginia in general, but it was also named to the Virginia Landmarks Register and the National Register of Historic Places in 1994.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious if you could explain what makes that architecture so unique that it would be award-winning.
It is a superb example of mid-century architecture. It is so contemporary, and its use of a lot of influences by the famous architects around the world. Frank Lloyd Wright, for one, others. And Len was very impressed with the buildings that he found in South America. He spent quite a bit of time there. So there are many features of the house that reminded him of their Andes hill houses, where they have open windows all the way around.
Lots of those in your guest house.
Yes. Yes, it has similar things to the guest house, but they were done by two different architects.
That's very interesting that you're able to blend those two eras together, essentially from 1960s and then today with sort of reimagining. And so that's sort of on our cover, you can almost see the very modern updates that you've made to a retro vintage feel of your homes. That's really cool. Yes. So we're talking about in your gorgeous, gorgeous house. Let's talk about your guest house, which is what, of course, is featured on the cover. I'm curious about what made you want to take on this project to begin with, because it's certainly not an easy feat.
Well, there are three main reasons why we wanted to do that. One is we wanted to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. In a college town, often these modest mid-century homes are bought and then rented out to college students. And we could see that happening in our neighborhood, and we thought, no, we don't want that to happen. And then we then once we decided that, then we thought, well, do we want to tear the house down or do we want to maintain the footprint? So we decided to maintain the footprint. So that was one reason, maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. The second reason is we wanted a place for friends and family to come and stay.
The most important reason.
Yes. And in our life, most of our family live on the West Coast or up in New York on the East Coast. And then we have a lot of friends, international friends, who come and visit. So, Blacksburg is not so easy to get to. And when they come, they like to come and stay for several days. So instead of tripping over each other in the Currie House.
Hogging the bathroom.
Right. We only have 2 bathrooms in the Currie House. In the new house, we have 4 bathrooms plus a half bath.
Oh, maybe you should move into that house.
Well, could be. That brings up another interesting point about air conditioning. I'll tell you that later. So anyway, it's worked perfectly because there are 4 bedrooms with each has a bath. So you can have people there that don't necessarily know each other, but they can interact. But we always get together daily, many times for just family and friends and social and so on. It works perfectly, actually.
It must be wonderful for your family to be able to stay there and they can just wave at you from the window.
My 2 of my sons were here last week for my birthday.
Well, happy belated, by the way.
Thank you. And they do a lot of their work remotely. So the space worked great.
You might not get rid of them.
Well, they did have to go back to family. Yeah. But anyway, they worked remotely in that house, and it was great. It was great.
Lots of beautiful light, too, to study and work by.
And then the third reason why we wanted to do it is neither Peter or I want to go to a nursing facility as we age, and we're both in our late 80s now. So we thought, okay, let's make the upstairs for family and friends that can come and visit. The downstairs we can always turn into a caregiver residence, so that person can go back and forth between the 2 houses.
Oh, that's very smart.
So we'll try it and see if we need that.
Yeah, but you're planning ahead, which I like. That's important.
Yes, we're trying to do that.
Right. So, in speaking of planning ahead, because obviously there's a lot of work that goes into a project like this.
Oh, indeed.
And so I'm curious about, you obviously didn't do all this all on your own. You worked with a team. And so I'm curious about how you were able to, you and your team members were able to incorporate your ideas into bringing your dreams to life, really, on this home.
Well, I think the key was Warren Kark, who we used as an architect. He is a longtime friend. He knows us. He knows our lifestyle. And he is now in his mid-80s and retired from Virginia Tech. He agreed to do the house.
Just for you, huh?
So we spent a lot of time talking about our concept of what we wanted to use it for, and he took that, and we said, just let your creative juices flow. And he did.
Wow.
Both the house and the garden. Warren was full-time faculty in the School of Architecture at Virginia Tech for several years, and then moved into taking over the position of campus architect, where he was involved with a lot of the master planning for future building of Virginia Tech, building it out.
Yeah.
And those plans are being executed now.
That's probably amazing for you to see, really beginning to fruition. That's pretty incredible.
It's really incredible. So he really understood what we were looking for. And we just let him go with the architect and the contractor working together. Warren handled all the subs, all the ordering of things. He was there every day for a year and a half.
That's so excellent that you can trust somebody like that to know the details, too.
Right.
So you mentioned a year and a half, and we were talking just before we started the episode. How long from start to finish did this project take? Because it's not just you show up and you start whacking down walls, right? You got to plan ahead. So what was that process like?
Well, a lot of talk before you even take the hammer to the building. So we really had to kind of understand what we were looking for and do some projections of cost, although we were pretty sure we were going to run into some hitches along the way,
Sure.
and you have to account for that. And, so once we agreed on the concept, we just told Warren, draw up plans, do what you want to do, and we didn't bother him.
You might have been his easiest client ever.
Well, he would talk to us and say, well, what do you think about? And we'd give an opinion, but we never interfered with what he was doing.
Right. And let's give a shout out. So who were the team members that worked on this, your construction company?
Well, it was called, what's it called? Extreme Concrete was the name of the company that really did the bulk of the work. But then Warren handled all kinds of specialists that he knew over the years that he would bring in. Special electrician, his own favorite plumber, everything like that.
Can I borrow that list when you're done?
Well, I don't know.
Well, and so in thinking about, you mentioned concrete and things like that, and one of the challenges that you had mentioned to me earlier was, for example, a cement floor in your basement. So obviously you're meeting challenges along the way. And so I'm curious, especially for listeners who are thinking about their own renovations, what kind of things or examples did you run into or maybe can give advice on?
Well, you never know what you're going to run into, but when you take apart an older home like that, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. And, you peel it back and you think, oh, my God, what am I going to run into next? Even the concrete floor in the basement had to be re-leveled. It was uneven. Well, anyway, that's one. Another example was the old fuel oil tank outside had rusted out and was leaking into the ground. So we had to stop everything and get out the environmental inspection and
right.
They had to treat the ground, and so all that causes
time. And, money.
So when you're challenged by that, I think at the beginning you have to realize nothing's really going to get done on time.
Yeah, kind of brace yourself.
Then we did it during the COVID episode and ran into some shortages of people and products, just quirky things that would happen.
Right.
But eventually, if you have the right people, you have them making the decisions, you don't interfere too much. When the house is built and redone, reimagined, you can go in and furnish it however you like.
Yeah, right.
And that's how I ended up with furnishing the house with mid-century modern.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait for listeners and readers to look at the pictures inside. Just the cover. I was telling you earlier, I just want to get a cup of tea and a book and sit in that chair by the window. It is so gorgeous with the view. And then you get to see from the outside how incredible the garden is. Do you mind telling me about the garden? I don't know. We're talking about some of your favorite features, and that might be the garden, but I want to learn about this garden.
Well, the garden, it was quite a challenge because the house sits on a rather steep slope.
Okay.
And so in the back, we had to do terracing all the way down. Warren brought in a lot of large flat rocks to do the terracing. And he said, I'm going to create for you a river of grass. And I thought, oh, okay.
Sounds fancy.
What's that? And so he starts in the front, and the grass swirls around down past these retaining walls.
I can see it now that you've called it a
goes
river.
Into the beautiful pine trees at the end of the lot, and it's gorgeous. And then he specified some really unusual trees and bushes to plant sparingly through the yard. So what you see are these lovely rocks and grasses and blooming trees and odd-shaped trees, and it's really, really beautiful.
You're saying all my keywords. I want to live in the garden. Sounds beautiful. So in thinking about other favorite pieces of the guest house, what do you really love?
Well, the guest house, Warren knew that we have a large art collection. And so he created a lot of walls. He created a stairwell. He even created a gallery downstairs that would normally just be a dark hall going from bedroom to family room. created a gallery, and we were able to hang a lot of our art in there.
That's wonderful.
So we have several pieces of Joni Pinkowski's. I notice on your, in the inside a picture of your in here, that there's Joni's piece right when you come in the front door.
Excellent. I'm glad we got to showcase it.
Yeah,
which is perfect.
She's great.
It's also our arts and culture issue, so that's a nice tie-in. Thanks.
Yes, I have a piece in there by Sally Mook, who lives in Blacksburg. And then we've traveled the world, so we have collected all kinds of art. So it's all over the house.
Yeah. Is that part of your background as far as before you were retired?
Both Peter and I we love music and art and so on. My background is actually I was head of the School of Nursing at Radford University before I retired.
For everything you did then. Thank you. My gosh.
So my background is in healthcare. Peter's background is in physics. He was a physics professor at Virginia Tech for years. So we just, when we retired, we just have traveled all over the place.
I love that. And you're bringing it right back to your home and your guest house.
We brought it home, yes.
How wonderful. And it's interesting that you're pointing out the artwork that you have. You're adding artwork to your guest house. I assume there's lots of artwork in the Currie House. So
yes,
that just means that's how much beautiful art you have to display.
It's very interesting. The Currie House has got a very different kind of art, though. We have a large collection of primitive African art that is housed in the Currie House. Very different from this.
That's okay. It still complements well.
I like it different.
Yeah, of course. And so do you mind talking about the terrace up top? Because I know there is a piece of art up there as well.
Yes. Warren designed an elevated, yes, I guess an elevated patio, which goes through the carport, and you just keep walking, and there's an outdoor patio. And it's beautiful there. You get this great vista all the way around. Well, there is a piece of art out there. It's a wire sculpture of a man, and I bought it at present time here in Roanoke. One day I was in there and I thought, oh my gosh, that looks like Warren Clark. He's sitting on a teak stool. So I told his wife that I was going to put that out on there and that Warren would be watching over the house forevermore.
I love that, though.
But I needed a hat because Warren always wore a certain style of hat. So she managed to escape with one of his hats. And so Warren sits on the porch and he watches over the house.
That's fantastic. And if you look at a picture in the issue, you can actually see him in the photo. It's so great. It's one of the first things I saw, and I went, "Wait, that's a piece of art? That's so great."
So Warren is the conductor of this whole project.
That's fantastic.
He's the maestro that did it.
So beautiful. I mean, do you live in your house next door? But do you ever just want to go stay in the guest house just for fun?
Well. Oh, yes. I actually have slept over there a couple of nights because you have to know what you built.
Test it out.
Learn how to work all the appliances.
Yeah.
And
the shower, all that.
But that house has a cooling and heating system that's very efficient and very nice. The house we live in has no air conditioning, but we have glass all the way around four sides of the Currie House. In the summer, we just slide the windows open and we have lovely breeze. Yeah. But at the time that Leonard Currie was building the Currie House, they were just coming out with a manufacturing double pane windows. He told us at one time that he got an estimate. It was more than the cost of the entire project at that time.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
So our house is not air conditioned.
Right.
But it is naturally air conditioned.
Yeah. Well, if you need air conditioning, I guess you can just step next
then
door.
Both houses face due south and get a lot of passive solar heat during the winter. So
I mean, looking at those huge windows, I just can't imagine how beautiful that site is to just, I'm telling you, I want to sit in this chair right here on the cover and just look at that window.
You are welcome to come out.
Oh, good. Well, that's going to be my next question for you, obviously. In thinking about, any more advice that you'd like to share with listeners on preparing for their own renovations or inspirations?
Well, I think the most important thing is to connect with an architect that understands you and what you want.
That's a very good point.
And then he needs to connect with your contractor or his contract, whomever, and let the two of them work together and don't interfere.
It probably saved you a lot of headaches that way, too.
And money, too, in the long run, I think is,
Good
if you think, no, I don't really like that, I want you to change it, you can avoid some of that.
Right, that's a good
Although
point.
it was not inexpensive to do this remodel.
Sure.
But you can save costs in certain ways. So that's my main, let them have control. And you can play with it when they're all finished.
There you go. That's perfect. Did you find when you were talking about, you sat down and said, here's what we want to do, where were you looking for inspiration when you were thinking about certain pieces that you really wanted to incorporate into the home?
Are you talking about furnishings or
in general? Just,
in general?
what were you thinking about? Some people might spend a lot of time on Pinterest scrolling for ideas or inspiration into their home.
Or come in with a handful of cuttings from a magazine.
Pull-ups. Yep, that's me.
Well, both Peter and I are very contemporary in our design likes and art, and we both just agreed immediately at what direction we wanted to go. And Warren knew us well enough to know, so he just took that and ran, and then he was responsible for all the beautiful contemporary lighting, and lighting is a feature of the house. He did a great job. Yes. Lighting and new appliances and the beautiful cabinetry that Ideal Cabinets did based on Warren's design.
I mean, that's pretty incredible that you have this sort of vague idea of what you want, and then it comes to life just 100 times better than...
It was wonderful. And if I had any final suggestion, I would say take joy in the process.
Sure, because it can be frustrating, but...
But, when you're finished, you see your reimagined project come full circle, and it's joyful.
And it probably is joyful to, once it's done, you get to furnish it. You get to choose what goes where and how to do things. That's always exciting. That was
fun. Yeah. I really had fun.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about that experience, how you found things, or, what you really loved being able to do in certain rooms?
Oh, goodness. Color. I talked with Warren a bit about color and what would complement the wood that he used, or what was this? How did we want to do that? And then I just ran with it. I like Mary Meckel prints. I like the Noguchi coffee table that you can buy from Design Within Reach. A lot of reproductions of the mid-century modern furniture. Just searching and looking and picking and choosing.
It sounds very helpful that you have a very artsy eye, it sounds like.
Well, I think that does help.
Absolutely. So our last bonus question for you and your partner, or when your family visits, whether it's in the New River Valley or Blacksburg, of course, where you are, or if you ever get down to Roanoke, what do you guys love to do or play or eat in the region? What are you doing in your spare time when you're not gazing at your house next door?
We love coming to Roanoke to the Taubman Museum.
Well, of course, that should have been my first guess.
That is great fun. We love to do that. But there are lots of places to eat in Blacksburg, too. But I have to tell you that both of us love to eat at home, and I love to cook.
When you've got a beautiful home like yours.
So, we don't go out to eat a lot. We do go to our favorite pizza place in Radford called Sal's Pizza. That's been there for 40 years or more.
Well, it sounds like when you make your kitchen as perfect as it is, why would you want to go anywhere else? Yeah. You have all you need.
And then, of course, being in Blacksburg, you have lots of beautiful things to go to at the Moss Center and art exhibits. And we love the Miller off Main Gallery.
Even just walking on campus is a wonderful experience sometimes, too. So even that's nice.
You don't want to go right now because it is swarming with freshmen.
That's fair. Maybe on summer break.
Moving in.
Otherwise, you might get drafted into helping them move into their spots. So, right. Well, perfect. Is there anything else you wanted to add or that we didn't cover today that you wanted to share?
I think you've covered it all, and I just want to encourage people to remodel and reimagine old homes. Don't tear them down.
Such beautiful advice. I can't say it any better. Thank you, Marcella, so much for being our guest today. We really appreciate your time. We're incredibly grateful to you again for your time today and sharing great homeowner renovation advice with listeners, but also for sharing your space with readers to showcase these gorgeous details of not just the Currie home, which I'm going to be obsessed with soon, but of course, our gorgeous, the guest house on our cover. It's incredible. I can't wait for readers and listeners to see more of these beautiful photos.
Good.
Thank you. And please do let me know when you start accepting guests. So if you're taking a wait list, I'll be first up.
Okay.
Thank you. And it's not just that incredible cover. You can swoon over even more photos by Bob Souter and read more from writer Stephanie Fallon on this home renovation, along with so much more in our September-October Homes issue on newsstands now, or you can always see more at theroanoker.com. Our next segment is sponsored by Stacey Porter of eXp Realty. Real estate isn't a sales business, it's a people business, a relationship business, and no one understands that better than Stacey Porter with eXp Realty. Stacey isn't just a realtor, she's your partner in the entire process, dedicated to ensuring your transaction is seamless so you can focus on making memories and not paperwork. Whether it's supporting local causes, making community connections, or being there for her clients for some of the most important moments of their lives, Stacey is your go-to realtor in the Roanoke Valley. Learn more at staceyporter.exprealty.com or visit her Facebook page at Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter. Our second segment today hits home thanks to our friend and realtor, Stacey Porter with eXp Realty. Welcome to the show, Stacey.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have you. So obviously you play a really big role in helping citizens buy and sell their homes. And this can be a wonderful and exciting experience, but maybe sometimes a little confusing and frustrating. So it's always important to work with a trusted realtor who can not only walk you through that process, but maybe even hold your hand along the way.
Absolutely.
But you're not going to, you're going even further by offering a hands-on learning experience for first-time home sellers. Let's talk about that. It's a really exciting workshop.
Yeah, we're so pumped about it. You know, one of the things I think we see a lot in the real estate business, especially in our market, is first-time home buyers, seminars and workshops. There's a lot of education, and that's very important. Mm-hmm. It is, again, a confusing process. It's very in-depth. There are legally binding contracts involved, so you want to make sure you protect yourself. But what we don't hear a lot about and what there's not a lot of education on is first-time home sellers. And that doesn't just mean someone who's lived in a house and never sold. It could also mean someone who hasn't sold in a long time.
Sure.
Or in a market like we have now.
Right, with everything changing, technology, I mean, things change
Absolutely.
in a blink of an eye, much
blink
less
of an eye.
10 years ago when I bought my home.
Right, and when we talk about first-time home buyers, even, those government loan programs recognize if you haven't owned a house in 3 years, you're first-timer again.
No kidding.
Right, yes.
Huh, that's interesting.
So we really thought about what it looks like for home sellers. And very recently, I think with a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends, I think too, I'm at the age where people are inheriting their grandparents' house.
Big point,
and
yeah.
they don't know what to do with it, or their parents are downsizing, and they don't know quite how to handle all those moving pieces. Again, they've lived in their first home since they bought it. They thought it was their forever dream home, and situations have changed, and now they're moving or upsizing. They're called move-up buyers. But truly, they haven't been through that process from that side. And whether they had an amazing experience when they bought their home or a not-so-great experience, that kind of shades their next experience.
Definitely.
And what they want to do and how they want to move forward. So they've never seen that side of the table. And there's even more moving pieces to the sell side and more ways that are different rules and different ways you can mess it up if you're not, really careful and have educated yourself.
Right. What are some of the things that they're going to go over? Like, what's like the first thing when I walk into this workshop that you want to really touch first on?
The first thing that I want to touch on is sort of a timeline of what this process looks like. I think about my Shani Poo, my nephew, my kid, and when he went to school, the teacher said, he always asks, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? The whole day, he's like, what's next?
Hey, as someone who lives on a deadline, I appreciate that.
Yes.
So
That's what I want. I tell my clients all the time, education is super important with this. And so I want to make sure you're educated. I also want to make sure you feel so good with this process that when it's time to jump, to press that button, there's no fear. You know what the documents say. We went over it. You know what comes next and after that. So we're going to front load everything up front So you know exactly what's happening the whole way. And that helps too when a problem comes up. Because if there weren't problems in this process, I wouldn't have a job, right? That's my job, to fix problems. And so I think being really well prepared and that education piece of we're going to do this step by step is where I want to start, so that people have an understanding of what comes next and how I can be prepared for that.
Right. And that timeline's interesting because, we're coming out of a time where houses were selling very, very quickly. And maybe they're not as much anymore, but they're obviously still selling. That's not really the question. But, has that timeline sort of expanded compared to recent years, do you think? From start to finish?
A little bit. Not for every house, not for every buyer or seller.
Sure.
But we're still seeing houses go. We're still walking into houses and telling our buyers, hey, we've been here for 20 minutes. You have to decide right now. And if they don't understand the contract or the process, that's really, really scary. Same thing for home sellers. Sometimes you may have a property that's on the market for a little bit longer, a couple weeks or even longer, and you need to be prepared for that. That it might not sell the first day. That's
a really interesting point because, I see houses still in my neighborhood today that they go up for sale and then they're pending, like a week later. So it's kind of amazing. But actually, the house that was next to us was on sale for over a year in the middle of when things were supposed to be selling so quickly. And that was curious. And we were always kind of wondering what's up with that. And typically, it was the homeowners not wanting to make the changes that were required or things like that. But it was just sort of fascinating to see the difference that could happen. And so your expertise is just absolutely invaluable to making sure that those home sellers and home buyers aren't totally lost in the thick of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just really being prepared for any contingencies, any crap moments.
Expletive.
Yes. Anything like that, I think it just makes it more fun and an easier process all along, even when things go south or go wrong. If you know what's coming, if you know what needs to be done to solve it, it just makes it better for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And just that point going back to if you haven't sold your house in 3 years, that is such an interesting concept, I guess, because most of us tend to try and live in our houses for more than that.
Right.
So, and like you said, you are starting over to some degree. So you do need that experience. So listeners, if you're walking into the workshop, you want to know more, when are these taking place? Because they're coming up pretty soon.
Yes. So we're doing them all over the valley.
Cool.
So be sure to check our Facebook page, Instagram, and we're putting out more information. We're doing several in September, October, and even into November. So if you can't make one evening or one Saturday, there'll be another one coming up. And the really cool thing is if you're able to RSVP, we have some special things we're going to bring that night to make sure there's a lot of value for you coming to one of the workshops. One of the things that we're putting together for each individual homeowner is you hear them called HERS, but it's a home equity report. And it's going to be specific to that homeowner's property.
Oh, interesting.
So we're able to pull a lot of data based on past sales, based on public information, tax records. So when someone signs up for the seminar, when they come, they will get a bounded kind of program book that is specific to their home.
Wow.
And then we're also including what's called a net sheet. And so another big thing I think that sometimes people don't understand is all the fees, all the things that come out of that bottom line. So we're going to make that a worksheet so we can work with them to fill in those things that come out of the seller's proceeds when they sell a house.
That's really excellent education.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your packet is something that maybe a homeowner might want to try and put together but doesn't know how. So it sounds like you've done a lot of the grunt work for them. That's really cool.
There's a lot of market research in there, a lot of neighborhood research in there, and a lot of comparative analysis to other homes in the market that have sold. And so we can really start to drill down into what it will really look like for them.
Gosh, I'm not selling my house, but I really I want you to do the packet for me.
Yes, you got it.
That's so cool. And so in thinking about, what else they can enjoy, you've talked about that home equity report and the sheets, talking about important topics. So do you mind sharing a couple of topics that, they can enjoy?
So one of the things that we hear a lot of times is people want to make, improvements, or they're doing things to their home. And it's not always the stuff that's going to get them their money back.
Interesting.
And so we're going to bring in some industry leaders in our area, some local leaders, to talk about some of those things. We're going to look at some trends in the market of, do I paint my cabinets and change the hardware, or do I put a new front porch on, things like that. What in the area is helping homeowners sell faster, get more exposure, and get their money's worth out of it.
That's cool, because it's so much more than curbside appeal. I mean,
Right.
curbside is obviously incredibly important from the first view, but like when you step inside, what's going to capture that person's attention to buy it?
The other thing that we've done some research on and that we try to get in front of is home inspections. So
Big one.
We've talked a lot about what we see in every home inspection. So when you're a home seller and someone comes in to do an inspection on your home, they have to list a lot of things that maybe aren't a big deal, but sometimes they are. And when a buyer gets that report back and it has 27 items on it, they freak out.
Yeah, it looks like a lot.
Right. So any of those things you can get in front of that makes that list a little shorter. Maybe we get it down to 11. We're going to talk about those. For example, on almost every inspection report I've seen, there's an inoperable light switch, which 99% of the time is a bad light bulb.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's funny.
And so think about all those that you could knock out if you just went around and made sure every light bulb in your house worked.
And that's so simple and a cheap fix. I mean,
Every time.
That's
There's
smart.
one every time. And sometimes it's light switches. I know in my house we have these panels with like 4 or 5. I don't know what they all go
Right,
to.
who knows?
But if you could figure all that out,
You're
too,
that Monica from Friends episode.
Right,
Like, what
yes.
does that button go to? Yeah.
So if you can figure that stuff out, that's one less thing too. We see a lot of loose toilets.
I'm not surprised. I mean, that makes sense because,
tighten your toilets, that sort of thing. So little things like that you wouldn't think of, I wouldn't have thought of those. I would be like, all right, come in, we've taken really great care of our house. Come on over.
Right.
But you forget that back porch light is out and
Yeah.
they're not going to change the light bulb for you. So little things like that to make that process go easier when you get there.
That's interesting. In terms of, real quick, this is not at all what we've discussed, but in thinking about your setup when someone comes into your home to look at it as their own home, the furniture, the things like that, are you recommending that the homeowner get everything out or buy new furniture or, setting it up in the feng shui, making sure that it's, walkable and things like that?
So there's some tricks to that too, right? So I say all the time, and myself included, people do not have vision. Right? So they're not.
I got a Pinterest board. That's what I got. So, yeah, totally.
So I wish I did. My husband has vision. I do not. So he can see past things and whatever. And you really want people to see themselves living in your home. So sometimes if you have really huge furniture or a lot of furniture, we may talk about taking some of it out. But we still want to have some furniture in there so people can judge how big the rooms are and so that they can see themselves there.
Sure.
So we'll talk about a little bit of that. And people, I think, worry sometimes about clutter, and that's a big deal. Or if they have to show the house in the middle of the day and their kid didn't put their shoes up and the laundry's over there. And for me, I'm less worried about that stuff, and I think the devil's in the details, right? So if there's a book bag over there and some shoes over there and the mail's on the counter, I'm not worried about that. But what I am going to notice is if your switch plates are clean or there's lots of fingerprints on all the windows or those kinds of things. Is your sink clean?
That's a good point. I guess because, as a prospective buyer, I know that somebody lives there, and it's almost like I can see my kids' shoes there in the corner.
Exactly.
So to me, that makes sense. But that's so interesting that you're looking at the window fingerprints.
Right.
What a small detail that goes a long way.
Right. We don't notice our own dirt.
No, you're right. You're
but
correct.
We do notice other people's. So that's one thing. And I always talk about get a magic eraser. Let's just do those things.
Yeah.
Before you pick up all your kids' books, do those things. To me,
I think that's fascinating. Just from I don't know.
It shows you take care of your home too,
I mean, livability. You're allowed to live in your own house,
yes.
But if people are coming in, you're right. They're going to look at the
yes.
They're going to look at the fingerprints.
The other thing when we talk about that is, if anyone came in my house right now, is people are going to open drawers and doors and closets.
That's right. The drawers, huh?
Yeah.
That's not awkward at all.
Yeah. So, they want to see if your kitchen cabinets, clothes
they
are
want to see how
up.
many of their shirts are going to fit in my tiny little closet, for sure.
So, it's so funny. I had a recent seller, and I told him he had the sleeping with the enemy house, right? Because you remember, I opened his
Was
drawer.
everything alphabetically
They were beautiful,
organized?
and all the labels were turned correctly. And I was like, yikes.
So hopefully he really just thought about it for that moment.
I hope
maybe
so,
he doesn't
but
live like that all the time.
But
it's pretty impressive.
But
honestly.
it was. I was so impressed. Their pantry, all their snacks. I was like, whoa.
They spent a lot of time on Pinterest, I guess.
Right. So then I had to search the whole house for the junk drawer because wanted to see. No, but really, people are going to open those up.
Yeah, that's
and so it's those kind of things, back to those details, that mean a lot more than if your kid's got all their toys out, or if you even if you left a cup in the sink, if the sink is clean, those kind of things. So it's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about as a homeowner, but for us going in houses constantly and listening to people and seeing what they notice, it's little things like that.
Right. Now that's so interesting, and obviously I know that's just one of the many things you're going to talk about in the workshop, so that's very helpful. So in thinking about why it's important for first-time home sellers, what makes your workshops different from other events that people might be asking about?
Sure. So I think how bespoke we're making it to the specific home seller and to the home, even though it's going to be at least the first part of it in a larger group setting. We're really giving them a plan of action, and we're trying to do our best to tailor it to their specific situation. Because one thing I think I've learned in this business is every home buyer, home seller, every deal, every transaction is different. They're all different. I feel like I've learned something new from every single one I've done. And so really taking that into account, that this is not a cookie cutter process or a one size fits all.
Sure.
And being able to tailor that to their specific needs, I think will be important.
Yeah. As a side note, I love that you're continuously educated as well in what you're learning from different home buyers. That's really cool. Like, what a neat kind of concept. Yeah. So, readers and listeners, if you're looking to learn more on how to join these workshops or reaching out to Stacey about homeownership questions, where can they reach you?
So they can call or text me anytime. I can make sure that you guys have my phone number, my email, my phone. Well, let me give you my email first. Stacey@tdporters.com. STACEY at T like Tom, D like dog, Porters with an S.com.
Got it. We'll list that on the website for sure, so you can see that. But it's great. So you can also follow along on their Facebook or Instagram, especially on details on how to register, because you don't want to miss that packet. I'm obsessed with this packet now. But that's going to be Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Okay, one last bonus question for you. Okay. Where are you and your family living, playing, eating, doing in the region? What do you guys love to do when you're not selling houses or helping homeowners?
Oh my gosh. So, we live in the Salem area. Okay. Try to be as involved as we can with the Salem community. Our kids were very involved with
lots to do
school activities and things like that. We love to eat at River and Rail. Mm-hmm. Just enjoy that so much. We are on the Greenway a lot. My son and my husband play a lot of golf at Hidden Valley, so they really enjoy that. So I love to be downtown. I love just the shopping and the atmosphere. I enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
That's great. Salem has a lot to do, and obviously you're all over the valley, so you're learning about all the cool places to hang out. So that's excellent. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to go over or cover or make sure listeners know about before we head out?
We're just so excited for the program. We haven't seen a lot like it out there, and we think it's really important. And the other piece of that is, we're taking the equity builders part of this really seriously too. It's not the best time for everyone to sell their home, and we're going to be very honest about that. It's not just about a transaction. I think for us, and it's it has a lot to do with our community. I feel very strongly that I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in the people business. I grew up here. I love this community. I love living here and supporting our area. And so it's not about getting home sales. It's about helping others achieve their goals, whether it's through selling their house and buying a new one, through, they might become accidental landlords, or it might be a better idea to do these things first. So we're really exploring all of that. It's not just about a sale to us.
Right. Well, what you're doing is so important, because it's not just about helping people buy and sell homes. You're creating community. You're helping economic development. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that your role plays into. So that's really exciting. So thanks for helping the citizens. And the workshop is going to be super exciting for people.
Thank you.
I'm going to come get my packet soon. So.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much to Realtor Stacey Porter for her time today and for sharing her insights on our region's real estate market, tips, and so much more. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Absolutely.
Really can't wait for the workshops. I know it's going to go so well. So thank you for offering that to our citizens. We really appreciate that. If you would like to work with Stacey as you buy and sell a home or attend her very helpful workshops, you can learn more about her at staceyporter.exprealty.com or visit her Facebook page or Instagram at Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter. Thanks again to our segment sponsor, Stacey Porter of eXp Realty. Don't miss out on her upcoming workshops for first-time home sellers and learn more about how she can help you with your real estate market needs. Learn more at staceyporter.exprealty.com or visit her Facebook page at Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter. Our final segment in today's Homes episode shines a light on our piece on Roanoke's Build Smart Institute. Alicia Smith and Michelle Ramaker from F&S Building Innovations are here with us today to share more about this program and why it's a critical component to our local trade industry. Hi, ladies. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. So it's actually pretty fortuitous that this Homes episode follows quickly on the heels of our education episode. I think that those two are pretty well aligned, as the Build Smart Institute is a terrific way for students of all ages who are interested in the trade industry, from construction workers and electricians to plumbers, carpenters, and more. These are so incredibly important in our community in general, but of course to our community as a whole, and perhaps even more so in the face of evolving technology. It also provides an opportunity for professional development for local construction companies, which I really think is great. We're going to get into that in just a few minutes. But I was curious, Alicia, if you want to start us off on, tell us more about the Build Smart Institute. Why did FNS see the need to bring this program into our community?
Well, anyone has anything to do with the construction industry knows that there's just a desperate need. Everywhere you turn, you see hiring signs, help wanted signs. They're constantly looking for carpenters and helpers and tradespeople. That's because construction's never going away. You know, there are certain industries that kind of evolve and change and things fade out and things fade in. But as far as building the buildings or remodeling buildings, that's never going anywhere. There's always going to be that need. FNS Building Innovations is no different. We've struggled over the years to fill all the open positions that we have to do the work and build the buildings. So several years ago, our owner, Gary Fazell, started talking about a construction school. And at the time, you know, we're like, maybe. But as the years went on, it became very evident that it was a desperate need, not just for FNS, but for the whole country, the whole industry. So that's kind of where the idea for Build Smart was born. It was developed in a way to actually provide hands-on training, not just people who learn from a book and then teach from a book, but people who have been there, have done that. They have the anecdotes to prove it.
Better than YouTube videos, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Build Smart is there to introduce young folks to the construction industry, to train folks who are looking for a new career, but also to provide that advanced training. If you've been in the construction industry for 15 or 20 years and you're looking to advance or just hone your skills, we can provide that training as well.
It's exciting to learn something new no matter what industry you're in.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And we'll come back to technology in a minute, because I really think that's fascinating in terms of how you both have to evolve and work with the people that you have on your team and how they're using that sort of technology. And so who is this program for exactly? I mean, you've mentioned students and potential companies, but who really needs to learn more about this program?
I would say everyone. So we operate in several different lanes. We operate for kids that are in high school that want to be introduced to construction. How do you know if construction is for you if you're never introduced to it?
Sure.
If your schools aren't offering some sort of program that lets you see if you're naturally dexterous or not. Is this something that fits you? Then if you want to be a tradesman, if you want to work with a construction company, we offer all those trainings. If you want to get credentialing, meaning certificates for the construction industry, we offer those. Or if you've been in the construction industry, like Alicia said, for 50 years and you just want to move up or you want to help other people, we can offer you certificates for those.
What a great pipeline. And so I would hope that most of the graduates stick around to the area, right, and really join our companies and our community to build up. So that's really cool. But also you have the opportunity to take that knowledge and travel with it too, right?
Well, and that's one thing we do is we help place students. So they're being placed in the Roanoke area. We're not placing them in Charlottesville or Lynchburg. They're being placed right here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so in thinking about why it's important for students, you really hit it on the head. I love that dexterity that you mentioned, talking about if you need to just sort of test the waters and I'm interested, but I don't know how to get started. Like, what a cool thing. And so I was curious about why it's important for students, in addition to what you've already stated.
So it's life skills. I think that
Good point.
Being able to repair a hole in your wall and not have to call somebody for a small hole, but you can repair that drywall yourself, that's huge.
I think I need to take the classes now.
We have had a lot of ladies and DIYers,
Cool.
flippers that are starting to take the class because they want to be able to do things for themselves and not have to go out and hire
That's really
someone.
cool. I haven't even thought about it that way, but how neat.
Yeah.
And well, actually, so for the community at large, that sort of answers that next question that I had. But how about, again, why is it important for the community as a whole to be aware of this program?
Another thing that I guess you maybe don't think of but became very abundant, research and development took place for about 2 years before Build Smart opening. And one of the things we found was that it's really at the middle school level where children start to determine what their life path might be and what their career options might be. So part of what Build Smart does is provide some exploratory opportunities for those middle school level, whether it's going into the classroom and just giving them an opportunity to play with some tools, use a screw gun, use a hammer, and figure out what it feels like
Sounds like a
to
pretty
work
fun
with
day in
their
class.
hands. Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times you can see them kind of light up. So you see the ones that kind of naturally tend towards that profession. But it gives us an opportunity to talk to them about what a lucrative career construction can be for them, so they start to think in those terms early.
Yeah, absolutely. And in thinking about the community, you've talked about how you're placing graduates right here in the region. And so that's obviously giving back to our community directly, right?
Oh, absolutely. So ACI is actually a company that they're electricians. They'll be at Build Smart tomorrow at 11:30 doing interviews for people that want to go through our electrical program, but maybe don't have the funds to do it right now. So they actually help with that training.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because we do talk about in the feature how the program is really available to all, no matter what your background or your financial situation. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for those who are worried about the cost or how to get through a program like this?
So there are multiple avenues that can help with funding. Virginia Career Works is one of those. They can apply. Build Smart Institute has a program as well that they can apply if they're 16 or 18 and older for that, which is called the Build You Scholarship. But a lot of times there are companies that are willing to pay for the training if you work for them. So that's just something you just need to ask them. If they realize that you're willing to take the step to further your skills so that you're going to be a more productive employee for them, they're willing
It's a win-win.
to. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
win-win
great.
for everybody.
That's fantastic.
What's that saying? What if we train them and then they go work somewhere else? Well, what if you don't train them?
And they stay.
And they stay.
What a wonderful
Right.
point. Oh my gosh.
Right.
When you put it that way, it's really hard to ignore. So you had mentioned in the article that this industry of construction has a pretty stable job market compared to the overall situation. I'm curious about what makes that so.
Well, like we said, there are other industries that ebb and flow. Construction is not going away. There's always going to be a need to build things, whether for our personal homes or for the businesses that we choose to work in. That's never changing. You're always going to need brick and mortar locations for things to take place. So there's always a need. And in a lot of cities, in Roanoke especially, there are a lot of aging properties. Well, there comes a point where they have to be renovated. You can't continue to work in them the way they are for safety reasons, for aesthetic reasons. So again, that just contributes to construction, and tradespeople are going to be needed.
It's a really excellent
Forever.
point. You're not just thinking about your personal use, but commercial as well. And then especially for an older building, I mean, that's a pretty important role, especially if it's got some historical value to it or something like that. You have a lot of rules and things you have to think about when it comes to that. So it's really neat that you get to teach people how to learn those things.
That's right.
Very cool. And so in thinking about students going through the program, is there anything that maybe comes to mind that was surprising, or a certain challenge that they didn't? What do you walk into? What are they surprised by when they come into this program and think, good or bad, successes or challenges?
I think many of them, I'll say for the younger students, if their parents are pushing them to take the courses, I think they're surprised at how much they enjoy it. They're surprised at what kind of satisfaction you get, because you actually build things in our programs. You're not just, making a couple cuts with a saw. You're building something that at the end of it you can look at and know that you built it. Not only do you know you built it, you know the different components of it. You know the proper names of them. You know the tools that it took to do all of that.
It's a lot of pride in that. There's something tangible, right, that makes us feel like when we can see it and see what we've done. That's
Absolutely.
really cool.
The other thing I find interesting is when all of a sudden they have a purpose, meaning they didn't know what they wanted to do with their life. and all of a sudden they have a very clear pathway. They know what they want to do, and they're asking, how do I get to where I want to be? That's fulfilling for us at Build Smart to be able to help them know what the proper way is.
Definitely. I think how proud those parents are to see their kids who maybe were unsure about what to do, and now they feel like, I can't wait to do this.
That's right.
How exciting.
So we've got a really cool story. During COVID, there was a locality that gave a grant to Build Smart that allowed 30 students to come and take of the core fundamentals of construction. And what that does is introduce students to the fundamentals of framing, of drywall, of electrical, plumbing, paint, trim, just the basics. So there was a young man that was awarded one of those scholarships and came to core fundamentals. He was 14 years old. He was homeschooled. So he... his education background was a little different than if you attend a public school where you have a lot of interaction with people. So he said, I'll do this program because what else am I going to do? It's during COVID and I'm homeschooled, so let's go for it.
Sure.
At the end of that 90-hour course.
90 hours, oh my gosh.
It's a 90-hour, it's a full semester program. He decided that HVAC was the place for him. He actually got hired by a local HVAC company, has been there for 2 years as a full-time apprentice. He's being paid, and he is determined that he is going to start his own company someday.
Wow.
So not only did he kind of find fulfillment and purpose in that, we also kind of lit his entrepreneurial spirit. That's a future business owner, and I guarantee you he will do what he set out to do.
That's so cool. That's so great. But you're contributing to the community as a whole, of course, too, that way. Like, how wonderful. That's fantastic.
It's exciting.
That is very exciting. So, interested prospective students, where are they going? How can they learn more about this great program?
Our website. All of our upcoming courses are listed on there. Actually, every course that we offer is listed on there. You can either pick technical or professional development, and all of them are listed there. The description of them. That's the best place. But, Facebook page, if we have upcoming courses, we're usually blasted on there pretty quickly. Or they can come in and talk to us. We love to give tours. I meet with people personally frequently, give them a tour, explain our program, and see what they're interested in.
That's awesome. And so in thinking about what they should be prepared for when they come in, whether they have a goal in mind or don't, I think it's interesting that they're able to sort of test the waters and see, I'm really interested in HVAC compared to electric or whatever. Is there any advice that you might give to students who are curious about the program, not sure what they're walking into, but really want to know more?
Well, our core program is really where you start. So if you're just a new student, no construction experience, you want to take core. That gives you an introduction to framing, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. But there's also some soft skills in there, meaning you're going to learn construction math. It's really important to know that. You're going to learn employability. You're going to learn communication skills. We're trying to educate people as a whole. Yes, we want them to know construction and we want them to learn the skills, but there's a lot more that goes into being a construction professional as opposed to just someone that knows how to put some boards together.
And just so you know, Core Fundamentals is not just for high school students. We have adults. It ranges. We've had folks in their 60s that have taken this Core Fundamentals class. So it's every age in between.
Yeah, that was my next question. So let's talk about how you're helping the companies that are already existing. So when they come in, what do they learn or what are they doing to help build their own program through you guys?
We get a lot of professional development from other companies. The other thing that we offer that we didn't really talk to you yet about is that we do customized trainings. So if a company comes and says, we've got these 3 objectives that we want you to teach, we've got 5 or 6 guys, or we've got 10, 20 guys, however many, we want you to put a curriculum together to teach them all at the same time, same way.
That's cool.
We do that.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting being able to work with different companies within the Roanoke Valley.
Yeah. Do you ever get to learn something new doing that too?
I'm not the one doing the training.
Well, in general.
Our lead instructor would tell you he's the best instructor in the world, so
of course he is.
He did that. But yes, well, we get to learn how to put things together in a new way.
Yeah.
And that's always fun. It's a new challenge. If you're in construction, you like challenges, you like to learn different ways to do it. So absolutely.
Sure.
And part of that customized training in construction, productivity is key. So it's always a struggle for business owners to take people away from production in order to to train. And I understand that, because from FNS Building's perspective, we struggle with the same thing. We've got customers on the other end that are expecting to get these jobs done, so we need them to be in the field working. However, we recognize that training can be invaluable in the long-term productivity of our company. So if folks need us to provide training for their folks, they can say, look, we only want you to have them 3 hours a day once every week for the next 3 weeks. We can tailor it to work for them. We don't necessarily set the schedule. You tell us what works, and we'll do what works for you, which is really important for business owners.
Yeah, that's because there's so many moving pieces. Like you said, you're helping clients and dealing with other businesses. I mean, there's a lot to go with that industry, for sure. So before we go, I wanted to talk about technology, and not to put you on the spot, but I was curious about sort of evolving technology. What exists currently that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago that students will learn more about, even if they're not necessarily hands-on in that right now? But, you know, for someone who doesn't know about that industry, teach me something new. What sort of technology are you looking at to help incorporate for new students?
So here's let me back that up a little bit. Part of technology is being able to get the job done correctly and more efficiently. A lot of times people's lack of training causes things to not be done effectively and efficiently. So starting with the basics and making sure that the hands-on part is trained properly, long-term contributes to being productive and being cost-effective.
Very important note.
Yeah. A lot of times we skip right over that. Let's get to the fun computers, and you lose the basics of how to get the work done properly.
The phone's not on yet.
And with the right quality. However, to that, there are a ton of apps now, you mentioned, and it really depends on which avenue you're working in. Obviously, we're broad-based by trying to tackle from framing to plumbing to electrical. All of those different avenues have a ton of technology that's very specific to those. As you get into the more advanced stages of the training, those things were brought into play, but initially, we try to stick to the basics.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because, in an age where we're all kind of talking about AI and ChatGPT and all these things, how are your students, employees, how are they, embracing these things? Because to work against them is not the plan, right? You have to be able to work with these things.
Right.
So I'm curious about how that sort of works in your industry.
Honestly, I think they find it refreshing sometimes to work with their hands, because they are immersed constantly in a culture of everything's on your cell phone. You can't build a building with a cell phone. Is the bottom line.
Well, especially students, the younger generation. They've grown up with everything as technology. So they have no idea how to use a saw, but they could build all kinds of programs on the computer, but they have no idea how to actually sit there and build something tangible, real. So I think that's the biggest thing in the technology realm, is that we are training the hands-on part. That's what we want you to learn right now. That may change as we get a little bit older and develop more courses.
The beauty of that, though, is if these students who are already technology savvy and then are able to learn how to build with their hands, they're going to be the best ones to be able to start writing those apps that are going to help the industry.
That's a great point.
And
Triple
training
threat.
Absolutely. Once they've got that knowledge, they're going to be able to take that and translate it into the technology world that's going to make it better for everybody.
It's really interesting that they can take what they're learning and, evolve it themselves. They're not just waiting on it to come to them. They're able to create the app or the program that they need to make their work better. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that we should learn about the program? And obviously we'll share out some information on our website about the website and Facebook page and everything. But just want to make sure we've kind of covered all our bases into letting people know about Build Smart Institute.
There's one more thing that I'll add, and it's not that we say it frequently, but I think it needs to be said. FNS has not placed anybody in FNS yet. Build Smart has only placed people in other companies. And we've done that purposely so that everyone understands that this is for the industry. We're not taking anybody and putting them in FNS. There may come a day that changes, but for right now, this is solely for the industry of the Roanoke Valley.
You're really serving the community as a whole.
That's correct.
That's really the goal.
Great. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming on the show today and teaching us more about the Build Smart Institute. What a great program. That's incredible. I love that it's for all ages, too, because obviously in thinking about the education issue, I'm coming off of middle school and higher ed and high school, But how exciting if I got into DIY and I wanted to learn more, I could learn more about how to do this right here in my backyard.
Come on out. We'd love to see you
That's
there.
So great. Well, I don't know about the holes in the wall. I might put more holes in the wall, but that's so cool. Thank you again. That was Alicia Smith and Michelle Ramaker of F&S Building Innovations and, of course, the Build Smart Institute. Thank you for being on From Print to Podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate your time. You can read more about the Build Smart Institute and the rest of our fun homes features, from home renovations and bathroom upgrades to displaying your kids' artwork and important tree care tips and more in our latest issue on newsstands now or at theroanoker.com. This has been our 9th episode of the Roanoker Presents From Print to Podcast, hosted by your dearly devoted editor, Liz Long. Thanks so much to our friends Marcella Griggs, Stacey Porter, Alicia Smith, and Michelle Ramaker for telling us more about all the homes issues features you'll find inside. And special thanks to our sponsor, Stacey Porter at eXp Realty, for sharing more about her upcoming workshops for first-time home sellers. Stay tuned for our next episode where we share more from the September-October arts and culture side. And be sure to get our latest issue on newsstands now, or of course read even more at theroanoker.com. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you find plenty of beautiful inspiration for your very own home sweet home.